Frogman Friday.
Yeah, boy. What's up, my people? It's that time again. Welcome to the Frogman Friday show.
Presented by Transcend, the best peptide and hormone therapy. They put your health first so you can live more and worry less. Go to transcendcompany.com/Birdman to begin your wellness transformation today.
Today, our badass guest is Marcus J. Allen, Marine Force Recon, 5 years of service, final rank sergeant. He founded Be a Weapon in 2024, and you can catch him on all social channels. To take a deeper dive, go check out beaweapon.org. Brother, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm incredibly honored to be here and just see someone I respect thinking big, doing big things, and I appreciate this opportunity. So thank you.
Man, I'm super stoked to have you on. Came across your social media platforms. I'm like, this guy's Recon, Force Recon Marine. Got a really good profile picture, and I always hate when I see a special operator that's better looking than me. It really pisses my ego off. So, I'm holding back, but no, it's an honor to have you, brother. I want to dig right into this because this is something that fascinates me, also fascinates a lot of the listeners. You go through this program, you become a special operator. It's such a labor-intensive thing. So for a lot of people, it's a lifelong dream. And then for some, it comes quickly, but they still have to put the same amount of effort and heart into it. So hard to get in, so hard or so easy to get out. What was your transition out of the special operations like?
Such a big question. Such a mixture of emotions and just economical problems and challenges, like figuring out what my purpose is going to be. I mean, I did not want to get out after 5 years. It's kind of I think that's a story for another time. But things don't play out the way you think they're going to play out. They just don't. And so to answer as concisely as I can, just because I always need to give myself some boundaries because I can definitely ramble. I think the thing is that the transition was hard. I mean, if I had to put it in a nutshell, it was like I was lost, confused, just riding on faith, even though at the time I didn't have a real faith. I wasn't a proclaimed Christian at the time. I think it's something I came into later. And I wish it probably would have helped me out a lot more if I had that stronger faith. But in spite of that, it's just all faith. I was like, you know what? I think I'm meant for something else. I think I'm capable of learning a new skill set. I think I'm capable of something entrepreneurial, something creative, building something. It's all I want to do, and I have the energy to do it. And I've proven to myself through my military service that if I set my mind to something, I know I can do it. I can outwork the competition. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, and it's just a new capacity. It's in a new realm now. I just got to shift, from a physical kind of grit to now more of a creative kind of grit, and a kind of a patience and a faith of just attacking an unknown, going into and like looking into a void of like complete unknown. I don't know how we're going to build this company or this idea or how I'm going to create this new thing. And but it was similar to jumping out of a plane. It's similar to looking at across the ocean. It's being like, I can't see the island I got to swim to or fin to overnight, but I know it's in that azimuth, and so it's somewhere over the crest of those waves over there. I'm just going to swim, and just one kick at a time, we'll get there. Whether it takes 2 hours or 6 hours, we'll get there. And it's the same thing with business. It's like, we may not have enough runway. I might not have enough financial things, but I'm creative. We'll figure out a way. And so that's in the nutshell. It was difficult, but I just shifted my mindset from what the military taught me and applied it to business, and that gave me an edge. And I failed so much. I failed so many times making businesses, and I'm really happy with where I'm at right now, doing what I know, combining skills, coaching guys, being connected with my community because now I get to serve in a different capacity. I get to share knowledge, and it feels so like this is where I'm meant to be, and I love it. So I'll stop there, but I could keep going.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can always keep going. I definitely want to touch more on that, but of all the military branches and the special operations communities, why did you choose the Marine Corps?
I had to be a Marine. And I think that's what I tell guys now is I get a lot of guys asking me like, I don't know what to, there's so many cool branches and cool special operations groups and special operations capable groups like Recon. And it's interesting and unique. And guys ask me like, do you think I should be a SEAL? Do you think I should go Recon? Do you think I should go PJ, Ranger? And I think like for Marine Corps specifically, logistically, there is nothing that really makes sense about it. You're underpaid, underfunded, and you have to do a lot more with less. You're expected to do a lot more with less, and it's a difficult branch to be a part of. It's just a rough life, and you have to love the idea of being a Marine. And I'm just sharing that because I get that so much, and so for people listening, and it was the case with me. I wanted to be a Marine. My dad was a Marine. My coach was a Marine. I grew up on a Marine Corps base. All I knew was the Marine Corps. And I just knew I had to be a Marine. And then whatever the best of the best in the Marine Corps was what I had to do. And that was Force Recon. And so that was always my target was on that. And I went all in. I went as hard as I can, as fast as I can to get there. And I did. And I did it. And now I coach guys how to do the same thing.
Before we get into that coaching, I know that there's a disclaimer that needs to be said because a lot of people ask this question, and I am certainly not the person to be explaining what this is, but can you shed some light on the difference between Recon, Force Recon, MARSOC, and what's the other one? The Raiders.
Yeah, well, MARSOC is Raiders. Okay. They're synonymous. That's their name they have adopted, and they're the brand that MARSOC's still building. It's relatively new. Recon has more lineage, and obviously MARSOC used Recon Marines to stand up MARSOC, and now MARSOC is kind of, dare I say the word, diluting itself with non-Recon Marines and building its own thing, and that's cool. I'll say, to answer your question specifically, the difference is MARSOC is the Marine Corps' now SOCOM asset, and Recon is the Marine Corps' in-house SOCOM asset. Basically, the Marine Corps likes to be standalone. It's stubborn like that. It likes to not ask for help from anybody. It wants to have its own air wing. It wants to have its own ground element, intelligence element, and it wants to be that kind of like 9/11 emergency on call anywhere in the world branch. That's kind of like that fast first responder. And in that, it wants to have the special operations capabilities, and that's why it has Recon. And so for all these years and decades, it's the main reason why Recon didn't move over to SOCOM back 50 years ago or whatever, when around the time when everything was being stood up, because the Marine Corps wanted to keep those capabilities in-house under its control. And now it's finally realized that the way things are going with combat and unconventional warfare, it's got to be a player inside the SOCOM community. The SOCOM branch in and of itself is doing a lot of the heavy lifting, especially in peacetime, and the Marine Corps wants a piece of that. So I'm not the best person to ask. I haven't done 5 years. There's so many Recon Marines and MARSOC Raiders I know who have in 10, 20 years who probably could answer way more in depth. But from my perspective, that's the difference. You cannot go straight into the Marine Corps on a MARSOC contract. You have to have a minimum time in service, and that fluctuates a little bit depending on the demands, and they change the bar a little bit on that. But you can now go in with we call it the baby Recon route, which is you get a contract from your recruiter that guarantees you a shot at Recon. And so that's a difference. And the SOCOM element, who you literally report to as a Recon Marine, you're always you're going to be inside the Marine Corps' grip, whether and for better or for worse. There's goods and bads about that. And so for you, if you're listening and you're curious about that, of course you can reach out to me anytime. And I inside my coaching program, I talk about these kind of things and guide guys depending on where they're at and their questions and what they want, what kind of missions they want to do, and what their timeline is, and also their physical capabilities as well. It's a little bit different. And Recon, you got to be a little bit more of a swimmer. Dare I say, a lot more of a swimmer. And so that's a big deal. Swimming gets a lot of guys. Like, the water is ruthless, and so there's a lot of little differences. But in a nutshell, I hope that answers your question at least a little bit. It
Yeah,
is
yeah. And then on top of that, you got Force Recon, which is a hyper specialized group within Recon, which they hand select guys, or you try out for that new program, and then you get selected to go to it. Essentially,
yes.
same.
That's also convoluted and a little bit complicated. Because I want to give a good answer that's not just black and white, because it's not black and white. It's not what it used to be. The kind of hand select indoctrination separate process has been diluted as well, and there are times in the battalions. Each force battalion or battalion runs their force company a little bit differently. We got 3 battalions, and each battalion runs their force company a little bit differently, and some do still have indoctrination processes, some don't. And it's a big thing is demand. Like if they need to fill out the platoon and there just aren't enough recon Marines, like Force Recon Marines who are senior enlisted and are kind of that do have more experience, then they will pull from the battalion just to fill out the manpower. And that happened to me. So they do select. For me at my battalion, they were selecting more senior, but for me, I was not senior. But they needed a slack man. They needed somebody to carry extra batteries, and they gave me a shot. And then as long as I hang in there, and there was a high churn rate. Like they would pull guys in, baby guys who didn't have a lot of experience, and if you didn't keep up, you'd be kicked out really, really fast. But in general, it was more senior. But I didn't go through an indoc. So to answer your question, there is a legacy and there is a brand to the Force Recon name that is very, very much still wanting to be held up by the Force Recon Marines that are in. But because of the amount of manpower that was taken to form MARSOC with Force Recon Marines, there is still a bit of a vacuum, and it leads to stories like mine. So that's why it's a complicated answer. But in general, it is elite, more direct action based, and the direct action missions are sexy as hell, and everyone wants to do them, and they're left for the best of the best. So
yeah, for sure. The house clearances and kicking in doors, that's the stuff.
Hanging off the Huey, just landing, running and gunning, getting out. And then you got the guys, your buddies over in the jungle were there with the binos, like been there for the last 6 days, who are like scrawny and hungry. And you're like, you just show up, well fed, jacked, and then just running around, and then you bounce, and then they're out there in the bush, like just starving, eating MRE crackers. And then they're there for another 6 days. And you're like, man, I'm so happy to be doing direct action. I love direct action. It's of course it's just fun. I mean, it was my favorite thing to do. And I loved that being in the Force Recon platoon. I got to do that. 80% of the mission set was that, and I loved it. Couldn't get enough of it.
That's legit, man. Well, most people, when they get out of service, regardless of time frame, they kind of go into a different direction. And a lot of guys will, teach shooting, and they can teach weapons, and for law enforcement, they can teach them in-home defense or whatnot. But 99% of the guys get out and don't say, I want to circle back on the pre-special operator to help them focus. And I know over time in the last 10, 20 years, they've tried to develop some curriculums to actually help guys understand better what this means. Because when I showed up to the SEAL, when I showed up to BUDS or SEAL training, I only knew what it meant to be a student at BUDS. I didn't know what the SEAL teams did exactly, because there wasn't much literature back in the early 90s and 2000, early 2000. Wasn't a ton. And so you had some Vietnam stuff that you could look on, but we're not doing specifically that mission set. And so I showed up and I'm like, wow, this is cool. This is BUDS. It's so much fun. Everything's different, new, and I'm so having much fun. And then I show up to the SEAL team and it was wildly different. And so I think for students listening, it's very interesting. You got to understand both sides of the spectrum. You got to understand what training looks like, and you got to understand what it means to be on a team, what those look like, because they're very different. But you decided to create Be a Weapon because you wanted to train recruits, not just in showing up to recon prep, but I'm sure you do primarily a lot of recon prep, but you covered on all special operations training because they're very similar. So getting out, trying to find exactly what your purpose is and who you are post-service, and then creating this, kind of walk us through that timeline of how you got to this place.
Sure. It is, for me, it was kind of natural to meet, because I had a coach. I had a prep coach, and who wasn't like, he was my ROTC instructor when I was in high school, and he just happened to be a stud of a Marines Marine, and he just took me under his wing, and he taught me how to swim, and he would show it with me, before school at 4 a.m. and we would do a 2-mile swim, and he was a McWIS, a Marine Corps water survival instructor, and he would show me how to do the breaststroke, how to do a side stroke, how to swim, how to tread with weight, how to egg beater, how to do breath holds, underwater crossovers, and all these like really eclectic or niche skills that you'd only really need to do for the military. And that source of knowledge and just having that time with him, and for me at that young age, it's what I needed. It was like oxygen. It's like I knew what I wanted to do, and here's this guy who has been where I want to be and was willing to spend the time with me to teach me, because it's a skill you got to learn. And so that affected me deeply. That relationship changed my life. There's no way I would have become a recon Marine without that prep. There's absolutely no way, especially at 19 years old on a well, I didn't go in with a contract, but I volunteered after basic training and I got it. So there's no way I would have made it. And so I'm just deeply that's a part of my history. That's my story. And so for me, I'm like, wait, everybody doesn't have that story. Everybody didn't have a coach that like was patient with them and helped them and taught them, to push past their boundaries, or, self limitations, or, just somebody who can see what your potential is and show you the steps on how to get there and how to reach that. And I realized, wow, it's actually a very rare thing that I got. A lot of young men don't have, either a father figure or a father who has done that job, but they're playing video games and they're playing Call of Duty, and they're like, man, I would like to do that in real life. But, the steps to that, just seems insurmountable. It seems too far, seems like too big of a mountain. It just seems like not possible, but it is possible. I believe if you're able-bodied and you have, a good head on your shoulders, I believe anybody can do it. I have that belief. And so when I built this business, I went in just looking at my own story, thinking I was this kind of runtish, scrawny, young, kind of just average kid, no physical, gifts or things, genetic abilities that I felt made me superior, just very average. And because I had a coach and because I had the kind of the will to learn and the patience to learn, I achieved my dream. And I want to help guys who have that same hunger. And that's the key thing, is you can do it, but you got to show up with the hunger. If you want to learn, I can teach you, but it's the desire to learn that's scarce. The information is abundant. Google has all the answers, and you can, there's so many people who do choose this path. It is not the most common thing. I think you see a lot of guys who teach shooting and tactics because it's sexy and fun. But for me personally, I am mostly passionate about helping young men break their own self limitations or limiting beliefs. That's the word. Seeing guys, build that confidence, that inner confidence from achieving some physical feats, or swimming further than they ever have, or watching their muscles grow, or watching themselves just look a little more manly and getting some testosterone going, and they're like, man, seeing a little chest hair pop out. It's like, yeah, you're becoming a man. And I love seeing that. And I love seeing the slow progression. And then of course, watching guys earn the title, or, go off to be successful, whatever special operations unit they do and holding that certificate and seeing their confidence and seeing them just evolve as a man. That is the best feeling on earth. From me. And so I'm extremely passionate about it because I had that and I want to give that. I mean, and now I feel like I'm in a position that I can do that with social media, the technology, and my other passions being filmmaking and editing. I'm just combining those two things. And logically for me, it was like, see a need, fill a need. As an entrepreneur, right? It's like, what can I do? I think at a high level, I think I can do this at a high level in a unique way. And so let me give it my best shot. I failed at enough businesses. I've tried e-commerce. I've tried stock trading. I've tried making a video making business, an agency. I've tried a lot of the modern things that are hip with the kids. I've tried everything the past 10 years, and all failed. Lost so much money. I mean, just ridiculous. But I love the game. I love the risk. I'm always going to love high risk situations. I'm always going to love being an entrepreneur. I'm always going to love this game. And so for me, this is my game right now. And I believe it's the first time in my life I feel like I'm right where I'm meant to be, because I'm actually affecting young men in a way that is so fulfilling. Watching these kids pass, shatter self-limiting beliefs and just surpass, their own ability, or manifesting abilities that they never dreamed that they could, is the best feeling. And that in and of itself is worth it. And then just making a successful business out of this is like icing on the cake, if I can do that.
Well, see, what you touched on a very critical point there is when I found out that I wanted to do this special operations and I started training for it, I had no idea what I was supposed to do. Yes, swim and you run and you do calisthenics. And I think they even came out with this SEAL manual where it's diagrams in a book where it's very difficult to understand, like, what am I really supposed to do here? So I never learned proper etiquette when it came to like the perfect push-up, perfect setup, all that good stuff. But I remember going to the YMCA because when you do the delayed entry program, you get this free membership to the YMCA. I was like, yes, I get a gym. And so I show up and I'm running on the treadmill and I'm trying to just sprint for a marathon and I'm dying. And all of a sudden I walk into the weight room and I'm not touching the weights at all. And I see this dude who's got these massive biceps and he's fit. He's not overbearing fit, but he's really fit. Big pipes though. And he's curling 20 pounds. And I'm like, I could curl 20 pounds. Why is he curling 20 pounds? So I went up to him and said, hey, can I ask you a question? I was like, see your big arms there. How do you get those with 20s? And he's like, it's not about pushing heavy weight. It's now about maintaining for me and keeping my body healthy. And so I focused on the longevity of my life. And I was like, whoa. And I told him what I was trying to do. And he said, well, I'm happy to show you, a couple things here and there. So that coaching, it was exactly what I needed to do so that I'm not going in the gym and just burning out and just exhausting myself and injuring myself and prolonging, getting to where I needed to be. It is so crucial to have a coach, especially when you're going to this program, because you put so much your heart and soul into wanting to be this thing. And if the proper work is not done because you don't have the appropriate knowledge, failing is hard, man. It's really hard. And I know guys, it takes a long time to get over it. But that
you don't want to gamble with the thing that you don't gamble with your dreams. I always tell guys that it's like, if this is the most important thing to you, then how you behave, your actions, how you prepare is you communicating to yourself how important this thing is to you, how much time and you spend preparing, how early you wake up every single day. Every push-up is you programming and basically communicating to your brain, your subconscious, that this is the most important thing in my life. It's getting the most of my energy. I'm giving it the most amount of energy of anything in my life. So therefore my body and my mind and my spirit has that proof that this is actually what I want. You're paying, you've got to sacrifice to, whether you believe in God or not, you're telling the universe, you're telling God, like through your actions, through every blood, sweat, and tear, that this is the most important thing that in my life. What's that saying is, what you feed, or the plant you water grows. I mean, it's really that simple. So, you can gamble, you can show up without coaching. And there are guys, my main point being is there are guys that show up with no coaching and they just wing it, and they have, they get lucky, or they just have physical gifts and they're just studs and they make it. It happens. But that is not the norm. Like that is a 10%. And are you, if you're risking and gambling with your dream, it's just not the way I think. It's not the way I do business. And so if that's what you want to do, go for it. But if you want to be calculated and stone cold, like, ruthless about making this happen and looking back at your life with no regrets, knowing you gave it everything. And if you fail, you know, it's because this was just not meant for you, because you gave it everything. Yeah. That's what I'm interested in. And that's how I talk to guys, is like don't leave anything on the field. Like if you fail so hard and so gloriously that you have no shame, and you can walk away with your head held high, knowing you gave it everything.
Yeah.
But the counterintuitive thing is, I guarantee if you have that attitude, you won't fail, because everybody wants that kind of teammate, and the world and the universe will conspire for you. The instructors, everybody will help you, because if you show up with that kind of energy, that kind of heart, who doesn't want that teammate? You know? And so I share that message, and I talk to guys like that, hoping that it'll land on the right ears. And some guys hear it and take it seriously. Some guys don't. And I've learned that that's just the way it's going to be. I mean, you can't force somebody to drink water. You can lead them to water. You can't make them drink. And so that's the point you bring up, or kind of, circle back on, is really, really important. Is you can gamble, but if you and you can show up and learn on the go and trial by fire, and you can make it. But do you want to gamble? I mean, or do you want to know you gave it everything? That's the question.
Yeah. Well, you don't want to be in the rear of the pack the whole time because you just showed up without doing the due diligence and the proper work. Let's walk through your in-doc, so kicking off, be a weapon. So, hi, I'm Ryan Parrott. I want to be Recon Marine. I don't know anything. I'm super excited. I'm motivated. When I come to you and I want to know where I find you to start with you. And then what does the start of your program look like? How do I get involved?
That's a good question. So I've been doing it, like trying to basically form a system for the past year. I'm still tweaking and refining a lot of things, but ultimately I want to make something that's custom tailored. I want to talk with you and get to know who is, what are your strengths? What is Ryan's strengths? What are your weaknesses? What have you done before? What have you tried? Have you had coaching before? Have you not? Were you a swimmer in high school? Have you had any formal training at all? And what I'm doing is I'm trying to see how many bad habits am I going to have to potentially undo, because a blank slate is sometimes better than somebody who showed up with like bad technique or bad training or just uncalculated training or just careless training. And so I'm trying to basically gauge, like, am I going to have to do a lot of work to undo bad habits, or you are just a blank slate and every rep can be just teaching your muscles for the first time what the right technique is, what right positioning is. And then so I'm gauging that. And so everybody is different. And that's the hardest challenge for me is how can I, for as many young men as possible, create a custom approach. So I'm still figuring that out. But in general, my philosophy is first figuring out, do you have training in the past, or do you have any kind of training? Yes or no? And was it good training or was it not? And so the main mission of that is for me to gauge what kind of work are we going to have to do to install good technique into your body, because swimming gets 80%, literally 80% of attrition is the swimming, and that's what separates it from other indoctrination or selection processes is the swimming aspect. And so technique is so important for swimming. You can't just muscle your way through the water. You can muscle your way through land. You can do a lot on land by just sheer grit and agony, grit, and just pushing. But if you take that same mindset into the water, you will find out so fast that the water will take away your oxygen, and then you're screwed without oxygen. Like, you need oxygen. So that's the technique combined with the power. Like, I always equate it to your body. The technique is like your engine. That's your cylinders and your pistons, and that's the all inner working mechanics of the car. That's all your technique. And then your grit, willpower, your muscle, your energy, that's all your gas. You need your gas and your engine combined, and you move forward. And in the water, it's so important. It's like your technique is your engine, and then you combine that with the right amount of energy, and you'll stay afloat. You'll get across the water. And so working on your technique first. Long answer, but technique for me is number one, because once we get good technique, then every rep going forward is correctly executed. And then as we slowly ramp up the performance aspect, pushing harder, faster times, longer distances, I want every rep to be perfect for all from here to there. Because if you're just doing sloppy miles and sloppy technique, you're regressing. You don't even know it. You think you're getting a good workout in, but you're destroying the most important element, which is your muscle memory. Because when things get stressful and the instructors are yelling at you and or throwing variables at you, shooting water in your face, pulling you underwater at a time where you really want air and you're freaking out, your mind's not going to have time to focus on good technique. Your body's going to do whatever it's done 1,000 times, 10,000 times. And if you've done 10,000 sloppy reps, then you're going to resort back to those sloppy technique, the flailing, panicking, and the downward spiral begins. And you're going to figure out how, I don't care how big and strong you are. As soon as you enter that panic, the bottom level of the death spiral of panic in the water, we all turn into the worst version of ourselves there. And I don't wish that on anybody. And so you can't get there. You have to stay ahead of that. And that's in my eyes, first, technique is the most important thing. Technique. I cannot stress it enough. And then once you've got good technique and you know how to do a good rep, now let's add in some performance elements. Let's get you going faster. Let's get you going further, longer distances, 1 mile, 2 mile, 3 mile. Let's bring the times down, because your reps are good, and good reps is what I want to see always, is because that's what's going to save you is good reps and good technique. That's my general philosophy.
I like that. So circling back on what you said about guys specifically showing up and didn't care how strong or fast you are. So it's interesting. So when I showed up to Buds, there was a couple guys that I honed in on. One guy I saw in particular that was just big muscles. And I'm like, whoa. And so I immediately was drawn to him because he had bigger muscles than everybody. I'm like, maybe that's what it takes. Because I know that this curriculum, and I don't know anything other than what I've read in the small literature. If that's what it takes, I'm hosed. And that was the second or third day he quit. And I was like, okay. Then I draw my eyes onto this guy who was a professional triathlete before he came to Buds. And this dude looked exactly like Lance Armstrong. I actually went up to him and was like, dude, are you Lance Armstrong? He's like, no. And I was like, I mean, you look just like him. And he's like, okay, thanks. But I was like, so I talked to him and he's a professional triathlete. And I was like, cool. So I'm like, crap, this guy's got it in the bag, because this Sierra and land, like this guy knows what he's doing. And he quit. And I'm like, okay. So then they pair me up because it's all based off of height, right? You guys are going to quit every single day. So they're going to reorganize whose swim pairs are buddies. And then I find this guy who was my build, maybe a little bit stronger, or it was definitely stronger, but a little bit bigger than me, but same height, almost same weight. And we did the PST, or the test that we had to do to become, or to go to Buds. And he banged out 200 push-ups in 2 minutes. And I was like,
holy crap,
I'm screwed. And so we're paired up. He knocks us out. I think I got like 80 or 85. And I'm like, if that's the candidate, I'm done. And then at the next evolution, we had to just do a buoy swim. So we get out in the water in the ocean, and we're just, 50 to 60 degrees in the Pacific Ocean. And you're legitimately in your camis just swimming around. You go around to this buoy, come back. It's it. It's out and back. When we get halfway on the way back, he's like, it's friggin' cold, dude. And I'm like, yeah, dude, it's just super cold. So let's keep swimming fast when we get there, right? And so we finally get up, and as we're getting ready to run to our boat, he bolts away from me, goes right to the bell and quits. And I was like, I just don't understand this. And so it really gave this idea to me. I was like, I don't know what it takes to make it through this. So instead of trying to focus on that person that you think is going to be the person who makes it when you have no clue, focus on yourself. Dig deep inside, because that's what's going to take you through. Even though it is a team effort and you become a team, it is individual training that gets you to the finish line, to perform yourself and show yourself what you got. So looking inward, not outward. So anyway, thought that was a nice touch, because I would see guys that came and they looked like they had a little bit of a soft belly. And I'm like, there's no way. And then they end up becoming like heroes in the teams. And you're like, you can't judge a book by its cover, because you just never know what people got inside. It's how much they want it, how much grit you say, all that good stuff. So
that's the thing. Yeah. You literally can't know who's going to take one, the physical lessons, or the coaching, the teachings, and combine that with the grit and heart that it takes, because it takes both. You got to be a good learner. You got to learn fast. You got to be hungry to learn nonstop, and of course the first job is the physical part. I mean, I always tell guys, you're a professional athlete. You're just not paid yet, and
Yeah.
and that's the way you got to think. Is the first part of the job, and I'm sure it's the same for buds and being a SEAL. For being a recon Marine, your first mission is to be physically as competent as you can be and become, and that's the program. I think that journey should start in prep, before you join. That's my philosophy. But like for some guys, like it sounds like for you, is you learned a lot on the go. You learned in motion in the course, and if you have the right aptitude and you have that right kind of hunger to learn, you absolutely can. And so you had enough hunger to make up for whatever lack in technique there was, and then you caught up fast. And
Yeah.
But if you got the hunger and heart, that's why I said in the beginning of this call, the number one thing is you got to show up to me with hunger to learn, and you got to really want this. And the thing is, ironically, if you really, really want this, then you don't need me, because if your hunger is great enough, I believe you'll be able to find a way. And to your point, regardless of your height, regardless of your weight, regardless if you at one point in your life was 300 pounds, or like I've seen guys who were like showed up and literally were obese, like basically like obese Marines. And in 6 months, they like, or it wasn't 6 months, it was probably like 3 months or something like that, lost all their weight, just like skin back, like saggy skin, like you could see like this ripped abs underneath these waves of skin that were like, there from being obese.
Yeah.
And became an absolute monster. Like,
Yeah.
and you would have, all of us, like when we showed up, we thought it was a joke. He's going to be one of the first, like this guy's delusional. And sure enough, you got these big burly guys who quit. And then he's just week after week, 10 pounds is losing, like gone. Before you know it, he's like this fish in the walrus with his skin like flapping everywhere. And he was an absolute beast. And that's like, to your point, is I've seen it enough to like, I've seen 5'0" guys make it. I've seen obese guys make it. And like everything in between. And counterly, I've seen guys who were like Division I athletes quit immediately. And so to anybody listening, if this is your, if you're hearing this and you're hearing it from both of us in two different sides of the military, it does not matter if you have that hunger and desire to learn. It does not matter with very small limitations. Of course, there's always exceptions, but for the most part, if you're able-bodied and you want this, you can do it. So can't stress that enough. But I do think hearing that is not enough for guys, and it takes the coaching to kind of bring them along and get their self-esteem up. I think this generation is suffering from a huge just hit in self-esteem, especially young men with just whatever they're putting in the water, making us feminine, like with the freaking birth control crap or whatever that's making its way into the water stream and system. Like our for me, I'm sure I'm younger than you, and then the generation behind me is, I think, just it's compounding whatever is in the air. Just video games combined with sugar and candy and just all this bullshit. There's a lack of testosterone. There's a lack of development in men, and subsequently a lack of self-esteem. And so I'm, of course, not everybody. There's plenty of killers, but I'm more so trying to find that crowd and those men who need to hear this message, and that if you're able-bodied, and I don't care if you're short, fat, tall, skinny, you can make it. Bring the hunger. Yeah. Be hungry to learn, and let's rock and roll, man, because you can freaking do it.
So yeah, I love this. I always pose this question to guys because I get hit up for a lot of guys who want to be SEALs and special operations, but I usually push them if they're wanting to go to a different operational group to somebody who's legitimately served in that, an SME or subject matter expert. So, but when it comes to the SEAL program, I mean, I served for 8 years in the team, so I know a fair amount of what it would look like. And I always say, the first question is, why do you want to do it? And I'm not asking because there's one right answer. It doesn't matter what your answer is. I just want to know what it is. And do you have one? Because that's going to tell me something. Like, you've thought through this. Specifically when they come to SEALs, same with recon. I was like, do you absolutely love the water? Not just like it, but love it, because it's going to be so heinous during times where it's cold and it's shit, where you're going to be like, fuck this. And so you have to absolutely love the water and this dream of doing this in order to surpass that nightmare and that chaos to get through it. One other point I wanted to make, touch on what you were talking about, is you say you don't care what size, shape, all that stuff. And it's true. I think there's two types of guys that go to any of these types of training. There's the doers and the warriors. And you're going to know right away if you're a warrior. The warriors are absolute psychopaths who are born to just destroy and crush, like Hulk. There are not that many of them. They're unique, and they're the guys that we always try to measure up to. And then there's the doers. And the doers are the ones who really want it in their heart and soul and will give everything they got to make it just to level up to those warriors. And that was the kind of guy that I was. It's like, I got to try to measure up to these hardcore warriors that I know I'm not, but you'll know which side you're on. Either way, those two types are the ones that usually go through the program and make it. When you say there's, it doesn't matter, you have to want this. It has to be in your core. Like, there's nothing else. It's not girls. It's not money. It's not anything external. It is purely, I'm going to do this every single day after school or wherever you're at in life. This is my focus point to get there. And if you do that work and you get yourself with a coach, obviously we are talking to one right now, to help guide you to get to that program, then you will have a really good outcome. And you'll surprise yourself. And the last thing I'll say on that is there's very few things that are more special than this. I'd say being a dad is probably the most special of all of them. Underneath that, though, is risking it all and proving to yourself that you can do it. That is the coolest satisfaction, to say, like, I'm going for it. And then all of a sudden you show up and you show and you do it. And you're like, whoa, okay. Like, when we graduated Hell Week, standing there with just a handful of guys, and you're looking around like, I can't believe I just did this. This is insane. Why me?
It's the best.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
Like, just looking to your left and right, I mean, like, we are studs. Like, these guys are machines. Like, these are the guys I want to go to war with. Like, talk about an edge, right? Like, talking about like a force multiplier, talking about showing up to combat, like, with the best of the best mindset, mind, body, spirit, like, and then being surrounded by that, and just knowing like you went through the hardest training together, and just feeling that there's a spirit, like, amongst men at that level that is a force multiplier. It's like something there's a energy exchange in between the guys. Like, it's a tribal thing. I think it's genetic. It's a warrior thing, like you were talking about, and proving that you belong there, like, side by side in that capacity, ready to bring it to the enemy with everything, and to push them back on their heels. Like, that is the coolest thing. I mean, for me, right? I didn't give a shit about money. I didn't give a shit about girls.
Yeah.
I couldn't care less. Like, I just needed to prove that I can stand there. Yeah. And just like the way you're talking about it, I equate, obviously we don't have a Hell Week, but similar type of things is there's points in the training where, you look left and right and you just went through hell together, and a bunch of guys didn't make it and they're gone. And they're these friends and faces that you began to be acquainted with and build camaraderie with. Like, they're no longer, they're out of the picture because they couldn't hack it, but you you did. And talking to myself, right? It's like, I freaking made it. And it's the best feeling. So I wish that feeling for as many guys as possible who are willing to go for it. Of course, knowing not everybody will make it, but the ones who hear this message from me and you, and I have faith that it will land on the right ears, and the younger version of ourselves who need to hear it probably don't even need to hear it, because they're already so freaking amped up and driven that they don't need a podcast to episode to convince them that they can do it. But if we can reach somebody who's somewhere in an in-between kind of penultimate or a purgatory kind of stage in their journey, self-esteem or whatever, and they can hear us talking about this and say, you know what, I don't know if I can make it, but I think I could give Marcus a call. I think I could maybe go out and do some push-ups. I think I could maybe try swimming a mile or go to the ocean today. and seeing how far out I could go. And those little wins, those add up over time and build your self-esteem. So I believe that fully. But there was another thing you said about the warrior and the doers. I actually, when you were talking about that, I was like, I heard that before. I think a clip I saw somewhere of you talking about that. And I didn't know it was you actually, but now hearing that is like, when I heard that at the first time, I was like, I think I want to ask him about that because I don't fully understand what you mean. Can you elaborate a little bit more? I think I know what you mean, but I want to hear from you, expand on it a little bit more about the warrior and the doer.
Yeah.
Because I think I know what you mean, but of course the warriors are doers too. But are you saying like it's compounded with just a psychopath kind of energy that's like, just completely fearless, like those kind of guys who just know how to turn it off and just run into the door, like that kind of energy, or is it something else?
No, I mean, I think a lot of this has to do with your upbringing, to be honest with you, the psychological upbringing that gets you to a place where you yearn to be something at an elite level. That runs for special operations, military, professional athletes. I mean, there's so many different genres, right? Be the best in your class. And I think it all starts in as a child, but there is a group of people that are so just hardcore and psycho. It's just, I can't tell you that it's a genetic thing or that because I am no doctor. I'm more so on the moron side of the house, but ultimately there are those people that, when you see them, that a round fired past their face doesn't scare them off, doesn't make them shed a tear, nothing. They are just built to be war dogs. They do a whole career. They know nothing else. They want to know nothing else. They are born to do that job. And when they get on target, they do what we are designed to do, to kill at the highest and the most professional level. Bad guys, right? The doer, I always say, was like a guy like me who I didn't know about SEAL training until I think it was my sophomore year of school. And then all of a sudden I was invigorated by it and I wanted to do that. And so I started training, but I was always busting my ass, giving everything I could to measure up just to the standard. Warriors absolutely dominate the standard naturally, whereas doers have to really push to get there. But that's why it's so great, because if you have warriors that are already there as a focal point, I can say I may never truly be as good as them overall, but today, why can't I be the same? And so I'm trying to measure up to them to get to that point where I'm passing the standard, dominating the standard. And then at the end of it, when we graduate, I look at that guy, I'm like, all right, you're way tougher than me. You're way gnarlier than me. And that's just, it is what it is. And I had a couple of those guys in my platoon and they're like, dude, it's no big deal. It's just genetics. And I'm like, oh yeah, you know that for a fact? And they're like,
yeah,
well,
those guys, like you're talking about, like those guys who just appear to never break a sweat. Like,
oh dude, it's just, they're freaks.
Yeah.
I mean, born.
And if that's the case, because of course, like I'm hesitant to fully like get on board with your message, right? Because like, of course I want to think of myself as I'm that warrior, right? But I think of what you're saying is like, because I believe in self-talk is important, right? Like, I don't want to assume, like, I always assume like if somebody did it, I can do it. If they did it, I could do it too. But the fact is, what you're saying is true. The fact is, if I apply myself, I think I'm more of the doer. I always was kind of trying to catch up to the guys around me who just seemed to not even break a sweat, like didn't seem phased by nothing. And there were guys like that. And I was like, well, that's not me. I'm breaking a sweat. I'm freaking dying here. But I knew that I could. I enjoyed the having them around me because it pushed me so much further than I could have gone myself, for one. And two, I think the other aspect of what you're saying is there's a little bit of the psycho energy of guys who are war dogs, like in and out, like they are there to do that mission, and they are dying and itching to pull that trigger and not in a careless way, but they are hungry, like they are hungry to do the job.
Yep.
And of course I had that in me 100%, but there was also a part to me that wouldn't kill somebody for any reason. Like I wanted to, I mean, this is not easy to say, but there are guys who are psychos who are there to kill, and they're thank God there's an outlet in the US lawfully that you can go do that job, and actually not be
Yeah.
a straight seer. And I don't know if that's what you're saying, but I think I took it as kind of like combined, but like the fact is you have to be a killer to be in that job. And there's people like me who I'm not I'm a lover, I love, and I'm not somebody who's here to just I just want to prove to myself I'm capable, and I want to hang with them, and I want to be an asset, but I'm not a straight murderer. But
see, this is the thing, man. So it's not for me to say whether you're the doer or the warrior, right? I'm just saying from my perspective on me, I knew where I stood, and I think a doer knows where they stand. Warriors just seem to cruise through, and they're just like, got it, let's go. Whereas the doer, I'm always trying to catch up to keep to that level. And so I speak purely from my own perspective on this is what I feel I was, because I didn't have the advantage walking in. I didn't have that built-in mechanism where I'm like, cool, turn on psycho, let's go. I had to be trained to do that. Right. And so,
yeah, that's, I want to entertain your thing, because this is your show, and I find it super interesting, and I want to kind of analyze myself. And so I think I was in your category. I would say I'm more of the doer as well. And it's more of I never thought of it that way. So it's a good mental exercise. So I hope guys listening probably are doing something similar, saying which one am I? Am I more of a doer? Am a warrior? But it's something I haven't heard before, so it's cool. So I love that you kind of making me think a little bit. Yeah, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. But I think at the end of the day, once you get seated in your position and you start working at it and you're charging ahead when bullets are flying, I think you ultimately become the warrior. It's just inevitable, right?
Of course.
I wasn't born to be a SEAL. Nobody is born to be a SEAL or anything. It's proper training. Just like what you're doing is what we do in SEAL training. We're doing a preparatory course to become an operator. So you're doing that to get them to understand. And this is the unique thing. What I like what you're doing is I say I want to go into recon or any special operations. I get in touch with you on your website. We go to beaweapon.org. And then from there, I sign up, I fill the forms out, and then I'm going to start a program. So circling back on your program, is there a time length for your program, or is it just up until they ship out date, or how does this work? Because I want to make sure that people listening who are interested or have kids that are interested in going, that they know what this really looks like all in.
To be honest, it's everything. I have guys who their parents found me and they're like, hey, my son, can you help him? And they're, I do it virtually. I do virtual calls where they'll film themselves on their iPhone. I'll get them, a little monopod like this, and you bring this to the pool, put your phone on here, film yourself doing, different exercises, some treading with weight, frog kick, side kick, and stuff like that. And I can zoom in and analyze and pick it apart, and then give you kind of a breakdown, a template or a schedule or a pamphlet program of how to address whatever specific issues you're dealing with swimming wise, and how to, or just maintain or perform or increase your performance, speed, distance, and customize, right? I'm really interested in as customizing as much as possible. But from young men in the delayed entry program, or parents who just, motivated dads who really want their sons to succeed, and say, or moms as well. I have a lot of a single mom, kid doesn't have a dad, wants to be a recon Marine, and talking with her, working with them to help him and just come in and help as much as possible, virtually, in person. I also, I'm here in San Diego, and I do as much in-person work as possible. Nothing beats in person. That's just a fact. But I'm trying to make the next best thing. I'm trying to create something virtual that can eliminate the excuse that if you don't have in person, you can still get better. You can still get feedback, custom feedback. You can get somebody who can look at you and see where you're at. And I just need to see 5 seconds of your swimming, and I'll know exactly what you need. And so just put your ego away, get a phone, get a little $10 MyPod, film yourself. Don't be afraid of looking bad. Send me, get some videos like Stu Smith does, but for me with Stu Smith, I see a lot of it's the finished product, or guys who are pretty far ahead, and he's kind of critiquing guys who are almost there, like in the last 10% of refining their combat side stroke. Where for me, I'm finding guys who literally they're sending me videos and they can barely cross the pool, they're just flailing. And And so I get a lot of that. And I've developed something that, like a system and a process that gets those guys virtually to a place where within 2 weeks, they're, almost 90% of the way where they need to be. And so that's it. To answer your question directly, whether you have 1 month out or 2 years out, I have an ecosystem and a process and a plan for you to get you going. And if you're on a shorter timeline, then everything's ramped up and you better be willing to kick it in the ass. And if you have a longer time frame, then great. I'm going to build you up really slow, because nothing, the lasting results come from a slow approach, in my opinion. Well, of course, that's not true. I mean, if you can under the gun, like with no time at all, you can, if you really want it, like we were saying, like you can of course make it. And then if you have the discipline to keep the teach, like whatever you're learning fast, if you have the discipline to maintain what you're learning, then of course it can stick with you. But I think like the best ideal approach is a long time frame, build you up slowly, and ingrain great muscle memory. And of course, that's going to give you the best result, like anything, like a slow investment, right? Like the safer, slow investment, investing in, the S&P or whatever. It's like that. It's safer, slower, more guaranteed. And your body's the same way. If you have years to work on your swimming, it's going to be a safer, more guaranteed result. And then if it's compressed and you have higher risk, higher reward kind of attitude, then of course we can rock and roll with that. And I know how to play that game too. So it depends. And I would like you to, if you're hungry as hell and willing to learn, then I want to talk with you wherever you're at.
So that leads me to my last question on this particular subject. What do you need help with? How can people get behind you? How can they support you? How can they help you?
Man, that's such a hard question to answer, right? It's hard to ask for help, but it's a skill. It's something that I'm working on myself, and the power of asking, right? We were talking about that before we started. Honestly, what you're doing right now is a huge help. If you have a podcast or some medium, a way of an audience that would be interested in hearing what I have to say, send me an invite like you did, Ryan, and I would love to talk with you. I would love to connect and network with like-minded individuals, entrepreneurs, or guys who just have a high risk tolerance and are looking for places to expend that energy in a healthy way. And I want to be around guys like that who just seeking self-improvement, and just get in touch with me, like talk with me. I love people. I love meeting new people who are doing big things, thinking big. And so just find a way to enter my ecosystem, or just be in my immediate kind of circle. And that would mean a lot to me. So I would say that's the big thing, like what you're doing, Ryan.
Right on, man. Well, we'll definitely be pushing you out. And like you said, if you have a podcast or a show or a news outlet, or somebody who has it, push the show out to them and say, hey, he needs more time to talk to more people, to spread this message so that he can help more people that want to go become the warrior or the doer or all that. So I'm going to flip the script on you and ask this final question. Who is your hero and why?
Man, you know what? My hero is my coach, the gunnery sergeant. I call him Guns. Dwayne Doherty is his name. He showed up in my life in a way that was from God. I know it. And I just want to give a shout out to him. And I hope he hears this. I just want him to know that he changed my life. Like him giving me that time and attention as a young man when I needed it the most, to build me up and build my body up, build my confidence up, and show me that I'm able to achieve this dream. I wouldn't have done it without him. So he, for him, he didn't ask for a penny, didn't ask for nothing. He just loved helping. And for me, of course, that's another level of just, it's something that I aspire to. He's my hero. So, if you hear this, Guns, I love you. And thank you for changing my life.
That's awesome, man. It's true brotherhood stuff right there.
Yeah.
Well, there you have it, folks. You got Marcus J. Allen. Go check out his company. Go check out his website, beaweapon.org. Share his message out everywhere. I'm certain that you know somebody who's enamored with the special operations who wants to figure out where they start. And so now you all know exactly where you can send people to get started. And let's really get behind Marcus and help him expand his horizons to train young new warriors that want to come into the community and serve our nation at the highest level. It's been an honor having you on, brother, and we're going to keep this stuff going.
Thank you, Ryan. I really appreciate it.
Frogman.